With 8 Democratic candidates running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District, it's easy to get lost in the mix. But that has not happened to Maura Sullivan, who has raised an eye-catching amount of money in this race. She's our guest this morning on Close Up. Maura, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Adam. I've been really looking forward to coming on and really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let's dispense with some of the unique aspects of your candidacy first. Some have referred to you as a candidate out of central casting, a young, accomplished woman, Iraq War veteran, Obama administration official, but you only just moved to the state recently. What do you tell people who like the resume but feel you might need more of a connection to the place where you live?
Well, really, I talk about my commitment to service. You know, I grew up in a family that was committed to service, and my siblings are all in service-related professions, and I've been serving the country for most of my adult life. I served in the Marines, in Japan, and in Korea, in Iraq. I'm an Iraq War veteran. And then I served for more than 6 years in the Obama administration around the world. I served on the leadership team of the VA when it was in crisis 4 years ago, and at the Pentagon. And the concerns that I hear from people throughout our district, those are the concerns that I have been working on and fighting for most of my adult life, and at times at the highest levels of the federal government. So I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one and be a tireless public servant and effective advocate for our state.
Some question the timing here. Did you receive any kind of heads up that Carol Shea Porter was not running for re-election?
No. My fiance and I, Mark, moved here before Carol announced that she was not seeking re-election. We'd chosen Portsmouth as our home. We'd spent a lot of time here. It's where we're going to raise our kids. It's a really exciting time for us and our family. We finally had our first chance to buy our first home and put down roots. And as you know, Portsmouth's a military town. You know, I served in the Marines, and Mark's a Navy Reserve officer. He gets his hair cut at the shipyard. And it was really important to us to have a close-knit community, you know, a place where you walk into a coffee shop and people know your name. And coming from a close-knit military community, that was something that was really important to us. We live in the Little Harbor School District where we intend to send our children, and it's really an exciting time for our family.
Your fundraising numbers are off the charts, prolific. There's a double-edged sword to this, though. Obviously, a good fundraiser is a good candidate. That's just a one-to-one kind of thing. At the same time, this can sometimes, especially in New Hampshire, turn off some of the grassroots people who are more suspicious of money in politics. What's the best way to look at this from your perspective?
Well, I'm really proud of all the support that we've received. I mean, we've had grassroots contributions from throughout the state. $3 from students at UNH, grassroots contributions from veterans, from young moms that are worried about their kids being safe and are worried about gun violence. And I'm really proud of all that support. And I'm proud of support from people that I served with in the Marines and for more than 6 years in the Obama administration from all around the country, that at this time in our country when our politics are so polarized and our country's divided and we see this chaos in our country, that people think that I'd be a good member of Congress. I'm really proud of all that. And look, in this post-Citizens United world, it's going to take a lot to defend this seat and hold this seat and keep it blue. If I were a member of Congress, I'd be working tirelessly to overturn Citizens United. But that's not where we are right now. It's the reality of what we face. And our country is at a tough spot. This seat that I'm running in has gone back and forth, as everybody has seen, every 2 years for the last 10 years, from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. I think it's really important that we hold the seat and keep it blue, and it's going to take a lot to do that, and that's what I'm focused on.
What do you tell the voter who is suspicious of the fact that most of this money does come from outside of New Hampshire?
Well, you know, when I talk to people throughout the district, what I hear from them is, you know, they're concerned about their families. You know, people concerned about their kids being safe. I talk to young moms in Manchester and the Seacoast that are, you know, worried about sending their kids to school. I talk to seniors who are worried about how they're going to afford health care. I talked to people who are worried about the cost of education. I talked to a single mom recently who said, I'm writing $35,000 a year checks to UNH. I'm talking to, you know, women who are worried that women's rights are under attack right now. So I think that's what people are focused on, and that's what's on the ballot this November.
You've worked at the VA. What's the best way to fix the VA system, both nationally and here at the VAMC in Manchester?
Well, I think to be clear, you can't fix the VA in Manchester when we have the flaws and holdups at the national VA. It is very, very frustrating, really frustrating to see what is happening right now. I'm glad to see that Ronny Jackson is withdrawn from the confirmation process. I question very seriously whether he had the management experience to oversee what is the largest integrated healthcare system in the United States. I mean, the VA, Adam, oversees more than 150 hospitals around the country, close to 1,000 different centers, and oversees the care of close to 9 million veterans. It is a very, very complex management job. There's few people in the country that could do that job. And now, I went down 4 years ago when I was appointed by President Obama to serve as an assistant secretary and serve on the leadership team of the VA. And now, 4 years later, the Department of Veterans Affairs is about to see its 4th secretary in 4 years. As a little bit of context, that's like a company having 4 CEOs in 4 years. You just don't get the type of reform and forward movement and progress that you need. And ultimately, it's veterans in New Hampshire that suffer as a result of that. I talked to a veteran in North Conway 2 weeks ago. He's not getting the care that he needs. I talked to a veteran on the Seacoast. He's driving more than an hour to get the care that he needs. That's not sustainable. So we've got to fix our problems nationally. I'm very hopeful that the president appoints someone who has the requisite management experience to oversee what is a very complex system so that we can get the reforms that we need here in Manchester.
Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts, is endorsing the idea of Scott Brown coming back from his ambassadorship in New Zealand to be the head of the VA. What do you think of that pick, potentially?
Well, I think that the head of the VA is someone who should have a very, very robust and management experience. Ideally, somebody who has overseen a complex healthcare system before, or overseen a national organization. There's a lot of healthcare systems around the country. That's the first place I would look. Places like the Cleveland Clinic, places like the Mayo Clinic, that have overseen, again, healthcare systems that understand in and out the intricacies of healthcare systems, because what this is at the end of the day is a very complex healthcare system with a budget of nearly $186 billion. So it's again, it's a tough job, and you need someone with the management experience to oversee it.
The leaders of the 2 Koreas have just agreed to end the Korean War. Does President Trump deserve credit here?
Well, I spent a lot of time training in Korea. I was stationed in the Marines in Japan for 2 years, and a big part of our focus there was training for a potential war in the Korean Peninsula. And then I traveled to Korea as a part of my duties in the Obama administration to honor our fallen. And I'll tell you that this is a historic moment for the world, obviously. But the devil's going to be in the details here. And the challenge is the follow-up on what denuclearization would look like. And it's very difficult for us to unilaterally take a look at that. Shoot, it's difficult for us to multilaterally take a look at that, because we don't know where all the weapons are. And that is important that we verify them before I think we get too excited about these initial steps that we're seeing. Having
put your own life on the line in the Middle East, I'm curious to know what you think we should do as a country in Syria.
Well, the first thing we should do is, and I'd make the case on my first day in office, to sit on the House Armed Services Committee. Carol Shea Porter has done a terrific job on that committee, representing our state, advocating for the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. She just secured another $150 million for the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard to expand one of our dry docks, and she's done terrific work. So I'd make the case on my first day in office to sit on that committee. And what I would work on is an update to the authorization of the use of military force, which has bipartisan momentum right now. Senator Tim Kaine has been working on this since 2014. Senator John McCain has been interested in this. What that does is it gives Congress a greater role and authority and accountability on matters of national security. So the president should not have been able to make the decision without consulting Congress that he did about 2 weeks ago now and go and bomb Syria. That Congress needs to have a greater role in that. I've seen firsthand, and I saw as a lieutenant in the Marines in 2005, was that when I was in Iraq, what happens when members of Congress, both parties, don't stand up to a president on national security and don't ask tough questions. So we need an update to that authorization of the use of military force. And I'd be saying that, Adam, irrespective of who's in the Oval Office. We need it for the country. I think it's particularly timely, however, because of who's in the Oval Office. And that's one of the first things I'd make the case to do on a bipartisan basis.
Let's talk briefly about the gun issue. No matter what Congress decides to do about gun control, AR-15s, any other thing like that, there are still an estimated 300 million guns in the United States of America. Should Congress be doing anything to try and reduce that number through buybacks or other programs?
Well, I think Congress, members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, need to show some moral courage and get some really common sense gun regulations in place. And I say that as somebody who spent the greater part of 2005 with a 9mm pistol strapped to my right thigh, which I was issued by the United States Marine Corps for personal protection when I served in Iraq. Part of my job as a logistics and operations officer in the Marine Corps was overseeing the safe storage of weapons. I've fired machine guns multiple times. I've assembled them, I've disassembled them, I've cleaned them. I know them inside and out. And I know that those weapons of war that we used do not belong on the streets of Manchester, Portsmouth, or anywhere in the United States. And furthermore, you know, the United States military has figured out a lot about weapons. We had a process for everything involving weapons, cleaning weapons, storing weapons, and that process worked really, really well. We have to take those same principles of process and apply that to the civilian sector, because we've learned a lot from this. And I think veterans in Congress have the ability to lead on this in what is, I gotta tell you, a pretty common sense and bipartisan way to get some really common sense reforms in place that protect our kids and make sure that kids, you know, feel safe going to school. I had a 10-year-old recently in Hampton, a 10-year-old, come to one of our house parties saying she's afraid to go to school. And I was out marching with students when they walked out of school on the 19th anniversary of Columbine at Spalding High School last week. They're 15 and 16 years old. Two students, brave students named Anna and David, and they asked me to come march with them, and I said I would. And I'm inspired by these students. I'm so inspired by them. And that's how this gets better. They make such a difference, but students shouldn't have to be marching. And students shouldn't have to be afraid to go to school.
All right. Well, Maura Sullivan, we thank you for your time here, and we'll see you out on the campaign trail.
Great. Thanks for having me, Adam. It's great to be here.